YouTube! Yeah! Alright. Couple things before we get started. Yes, my nails are painted. And the reality is when your toddler comes bumbling up out of the bathroom saying, "Dad, I want to paint your nails, your turn," and they're covered in nail polish and you know you're about to be too, you just sort of go with that. And I'm cool with that. And the other thing is there was supposed to have been a whole bunch of footage of me using this knife, and that was going to go into me talking about this knife. And then because technology is hard, I accidentally erased all of it, and now I have nothing. So this is going to be a little tabletop talk. So let's get down to it. I am here to discuss with you the Condor tool and knife elven blade, or also known as the Primitive Bush Tool. This guy, it looks like an elven blade, man. It looks like something that Legolas would be throwing around, hurtling through the air after he ran out of arrows and orcs are dying left and right. This looks exactly like something he would use. And that's part of what makes it really fun, is the actual visual design of this knife. I think is actually quite beautiful and elegant and simple, and I think Matt Graham really hit it out of the park with this design. So this was designed a few years ago by Matt Graham of the dual survival variety. This came from his initial design of a knife that used their jungle bowie that he kind of cut and modified. So you'll see a lot of similar elements in this to the jungle bowie. Instead of it kind of swooping up and having a top like you're used to seeing a bowie, he trimmed it, gave it a little sharpness on the top, and so his original design looks like this, and it was a knife that he modified. Then Condor said, "Hey, that thing you did with our knife, kind of cool. You want to actually just make one for us?" So we did, and this is what they came up with. It is 420 HC stainless steel with a Scandinavian grind, a nice spear point that is, you know, it's got kind of a little dip here and a change, but this is centered with the center of the handle, so there's a straight line that goes through that's pretty solid, which allows you to get some good drilling and twisting and making holes and divots, and it's phenomenally useful for that. Walnut handles. Someone check me on that. Walnut handles, full tang, 8-inch blade. There is a 1075 high carbon steel version of this that comes with micarta handles. And with that, let's talk a bit about the handle. So if you watch my other reviews, you'll know I'm huge on handles. The handle's such a big thing. There's been amazing, fantastic, expensive, glorious knives that I've owned that I just got rid of because the handle didn't work for me. I've got big, sausagey, fat hands, and so there's got to be the right kind of handle. And for this one, I love the handle going into this guy. It's got this big you know, swell in the middle, gives you something to grip onto, and it's close enough in the back where it gives you, and the front where you can pinch just in the right ways, but it's not so small that you can't get a big choke hold on it. And I also love the length of it. When you have this extra little bit, you're able to slip back and do like a 3-finger hold and do a nice wrist snap sort of action for some chopping. And the size of the blade and the knife lends itself to be able to do some solid light chopping. And Grant, one of the things to keep in mind is, I'll get to the chopping in a minute. Talking about the handle. So I mean, we got the handle going on here, and I love its size, I love its girth, I love its shape. It's super simple, and it's a little bit reminiscent of maybe more of like a Puko style handle or a Scandi knife, where you got a big open belly that's fat in the middle, and it gives you something to stick in and fill the palm of your hand. And I think I adore it. I adore the handle. Getting into the blade, that chopping business. This is I wouldn't call this knife a chopper. It can chop, but it's not a chopper. You know, if you're going in the wilderness and you've got a Becker BK9 or an Essie Hungless, or you're more of like maybe a kukri user, or what is it, the Bolo machete, or any of those other kinds of designs, you know, it's not that. But it does do that sort of thing, and that's one of the other beauties about it. This entire knife is phenomenal in the fact that it is a jack of all trades and a master of none. And when you get into the the blade and its length and its girth and its strength, it's thick, but it's not too thick. It's about the same thickness as my Garberg here, and it's just got an extra 3-4 inches on it than the Garberg does, which means that it's able to slice, it's able to carve, it's able to do slightly detailed work, but it's also thick enough, like the Garberg is to take a bunch of punishment. This, it's not, you're not gonna take a rock and pound it through a tree tough. There are very few knives that are, but the fact that you're able to baton reasonably sized logs with this successfully. There's a video that I posted called the Swedish Fire Torch with Obi, where I use this to build a Swedish fire torch and boil some tea and cook some food on. So go ahead and watch that and watch me use this to I guess not all the footage is dead. Yes. Go ahead and check that out. It's got a bit of a longer video, but it's fun to see this knife's ability. And when you get down into it too, this thing can actually do some detailed carving too. The edge comes in close enough to the handle here to where you're able to choke up and get some detailed work. And it is, it gets a little tricky on the actual sharpness and edge geometry down towards the end. But that is also kind of to be expected with the price range you're asking for, the size of the knife, the design of the knife. And it's one of those things where it's like, don't get your hopes too high. There's just some realism to this knife. But the fact that you're able to kind of choke up and it's not so heavy and it's not so big and cumbersome that you can't carve notches close to, with your wood or whatever you're working with close to the hand is phenomenal. It's able to do that. And it's not as comfortable and straightforward and easy to do as, say, the Garberg or maybe the Cans Bowl, but you can. And when you're chopping, you're not able to chop and do some serious work like you would be with something like this, but it can do it. And you're definitely not going to be able to get up close and personal with some excellent carving as hold on a sec. As a like dedicated carving knife, but you can watch out now. You can choke up on this sucker and get in and do some detailed work for if you are trying to carve a spoon, or if you are trying to carve a net needle, a netting needle, or the ones where we're making net, it looks funny. Like, you could do that. You could pull that off with this knife. Will it be pretty? God, no. Would it be with this? Absolutely. That thing? No. But can you? Yes. And that is the beauty of it. And that brings me to kind of the main the main crux of what this knife is about, what Graham's intent was. And he says so, is that he wanted this to be a one-tool option. Because Graham is very much a minimalist. He's very much a one with nature kind of a guy. Carry as little as possible on your body so that you're carrying as much knowledge as you can in your mind. Kind of an outdoorsman. This knife was, by his own admission and through my own use and experience with this knife, 100% an attempt at the great white whale of the knife community, a one-tool option. And so with that in mind, I think this is just a fantastic, beautifully, gloriously created blade. The reality is if you want to go into the wilderness and do everything you need to do, you are going to have to carry multiple blades. If you want to do it all well, but if you're out there and you're going out there for that challenge, for the experience of trying to become one with nature, to try and, dissolve your own ego and to try and live off the land in as you know, kind of organic a way as possible, then having something just like just this is going to really push you to that limit, to push you to build your skills and build your knowledge as a woodsman in a remarkable way. The idea of being able to go into the wilderness with just this and survive well is a for many people it's just a romantic notion, but the reality is it can be done. I mean, Matt Graham does it. There's plenty of people that do it, and if you study enough and practice enough, you can too. Anyone can do that, and this is a perfect blade for that. The idea of being able to go into the wilderness with, say, just these two things and be perfectly comfortable and happy with your skill set and these tools, you're set. Take away this, you could still do it. It's possible. You could pull that off and be fine. I mean, the reality is you could do it just this guy too. And, you know, I mean, like, if you're good enough, you could pull it off. And crafty enough. But, you know, this is an elegant blade. It's a beautiful blade. It's a utilitarian blade, and I love it to death. And now the question is, like, who is this for? Is this for your budding woodsman, your budding knife crafter? Absolutely not. If you are new to the game and new to that, you know, knife skills and woodcraft and bushcraft, you want to start here. You want to start with a Mora, a Garberg, a Cansbowl, a companion. $20 for a companion. I mean, you can. I mean, realistically, to start off, you spend $15-20 on a companion, another 20 on a Baco Laplander, and spend another 35 on a hatchet at Lowe's, and you have the tools you need to begin at a super reasonable price range. And it also gives you wiggle room to experiment and to learn and to practice without having to break the bank and feel like you're committed to something crazy. You know what I mean? And that's where you want to start. And the fact is, too, is if you're just learning knife skills, a big knife is never where you want to start anyway. That's not going to be helpful. A manageable, easy-to-handle knife is going to be safer for you and more effective. Now, say you are that person that has spent that time, you've learned knife skills, you've learned axe skills, you've learned saw skills, you've learned wood skills, you have a body of knowledge and abilities. Enter the large knife. Enter that notion of the one-tool option. Enter that challenge of, you know, pushing your skills farther forward. This is the kind of knife you want to consider. That's who this knife is for, in my opinion. If you're asking me, that's what I'm telling you. And so for that, you know, if you are a person that is trying to press yourself to a new level of skills in the wilderness, this, you know, $80 well-made knife is a fantastic way to push yourself to a new level in woodsmanship, in knife craft, and frankly just knife design and collection. This is actually my wife's blade. It's the one that you'll see in the video. It's the one that I, you know, initially shot review with, and it's one of those ones where I kept using it, I kept loving it. My wife kept saying, "Give me my knife back. Where's my elven blade?" And I said, "I'm fighting the world. The orcs are coming." And then I just went and bought my own. So now there are two. We have two elven blades in the house because it's just such a good knife, because I love it so much. Now you may be able to tell, maybe not, but they do have slight differences, just kind of fit and finish manufacturing. This guy does seem a little bit heavier. The lines are not quite the same. You know, that's to be expected. A lot of this stuff is kind of, there's stuff that's cut and pressed by machines in the factory, and a lot of it gets hand finished. So the handle is a little bit broader and blockier on mine. It's a little bit heavier, though not by much. I think, I bet if we weighed it, I may be just having a perception issue. But that's also to just be expected. The way that Condor kind of runs its business is they have these, you know, high quality blades for a super reasonable price. And the way I've always kind of viewed Condor is you spend, you know, $50 on the bush lore, the Condor bush lore, their kind of flagship bushcraft knife. You spend 50 bucks on a brand new one of that, you get a brilliant leather sheath. You know, here's the leather sheath for the bush tool. And then with a little bit of sanding, a little bit of sharpening, a little edge geometry honing, you put that in on yourself, that $50 knife becomes a $80 knife. This $80 knife with all of this, you know, I sand, I treat with some beeswax on the handle, I sharpen with my own skills and turn this into more of a convex Scandi edge, and you know, maybe on the sheath I get a leather ring around here and put a dangler on it, and now I have a dangler sheath, and I put in my own time and energy, and I have an $80 knife that turns into a $120 knife. Because they make a quality thing, they just don't finish it all the way. A little effort on your part makes it something that's a brilliant, brilliant tool. And that's just kind of how I've always viewed Condor's tools. That's the way it always seems to work out on the couple that I've owned in the past. And so with that being said, you know, here's the sheath. It was designed with the intent that the knife would sit inside of it, and then using this flap here, you would tuck it into a belt or a sash or whatever, and it would sort of sit securely in any kind of position you wanted it to fit into. And that's how the knife goes. Some people didn't like that, so online, some of the tricks I've seen, like I mentioned, you know, a little leather wrap around the bottom, and then a D-ring and a dangler or a carabiner or however you want to do it, and it turns into a dangler sheath that you can have, you know, on your right hip instead of tucked in over here in a sash in a crossbody draw. That seems kind of awkward, but also is kind of more of a kukuri style approach. And you know, it's a very modifiable tool. Wanted to mention a little bit about the idea of the high carbon steel with the micarta handles. It has micarta handles, and one of the criticisms I've heard it it's not a universal one, but it has happened, is when it's put under kind of more extreme test like batoning or heavy chopping, the handle has 3 segments of micarta that are different colors, and they're held in by each of these pins. And some say, you know, there's a little bit of glue that goes into the back here. It's not just held in by the pins. Or maybe it is, but I don't think so. After some serious stress, those things can kind of come loose and they'll start to wiggle around a little bit. And that's with that high carbon steel micarta version. And so some people have gone and just gotten them rehandled. Others have returned or sold them and went for the stainless steel version. And those are just things to consider in your mind if you are looking at this and you say, well, I'm not a stainless steel fan, I want high carbon steel. Just know that the high carbon steel version of this knife has a potential caveat that you should be aware of. And again, that's not to say it happens every time. Some people have put it through, based on what I've read and seen, some people have put it through equal stress and never had a problem and don't expect it. So just know that's a possibility, and be aware of that. But otherwise, guys, man, I gotta tell you, this is a great knife. And even if you don't want to use it, you don't think it fits your style, but you're a collector anyway, I think this is just a beautiful piece. I mean, it's weird to feel that way about a knife, you know, down in the cockles of my heart, but there it is. The Condor Elven Blade. Thanks for watching. Make sure if you have any questions or comments, throw them down in the comment section below. If you've been a fan of everything that I've done on the channel here so far and think, you know, I want that to happen better, check out my Patreon. There'll be a link in the description below. Throw out your support. And have a great day. Godspeed, and don't get eaten by a bear.